Hello and welcome everyone to the next lecture of the IGCSE Biology 0610 series. This is the third lecture of the series, and in this lecture we will discuss sexual reproduction in plants. It is 16.3 topic of the syllabus. So in this we discuss the basic structure of a flower. What are the basic parts a flower has and why the flower is called the reproductive structure of plants. So let's start our discussion. As we all know, a typical plant has stem, leaves, root, and flower. Flower is the most important structure because it holds the reproductive organs of plant. And what are these reproductive organs? The male reproductive organ is called stamen, while the female reproductive organ is called carpel. So, if someone asks you what is the reproductive structure of plant, the answer is flower. Flower is the reproductive structure of plant. And why it is called reproductive structure of plant? Because it holds reproductive organs of plant. Reproductive organs. The male reproductive organ is called stamen, while female reproductive organ is called carpel. The male reproductive organ will produce male gametes, and male gametes are called pollen grains, while female reproductive organ will produce female gamete, and female gamete is called egg cell. So male and female reproductive organs are present in a flower. This is the diagram of a flower. As you can see, a typical flower has 4 basic structures. Let's see what are these. First is petals, second is sepals, third is stamen, and fourth is carpel. As we just discussed, stamen is male reproductive organ, while carpel is female reproductive organ. Female reproductive organ of the plant. As you see in this picture, this orange color structure is the petal of a flower. In this diagram, this green colored structure is the sepal. This is the diagram of stamen or male reproductive part. It is further divided into 2 parts, anther and filament. And this is the structure of carpel. It is further divided into 3 parts, stigma, style, and ovary. So, sepal is the outermost part of flower. Inner to sepal is petal. Petal is inner to sepal. This is sepal, the green one, and this is petal. In this diagram, this is sepal, the green one, and this is petal. Below or inner to sepal is petal. Inner to petal are stamen and carpel. So reproductive organs are innermost in the flower. It is essential for their protection. So let's discuss these one by one. How the petals look. Petals are brightly colored. They can be yellow, orange, red, pink, or purple. As you can see in this diagram, these purple ones and pink ones are petals, and these are scented. Their arrangement in a flower can be circular. They can be circularly arranged or cylindrical. They can be 4 to 10 in number depending on the type of flower. Like the sunflower has so many petals, while the rose plant has less number of petals as compared to sunflower. These petals can be free or joined or fused to each other to form a tube-like structure. Now, main thing, what is the function of these petals? Why the petals are important for flowers? What is the role of petals in the sexual reproduction? So, petals attract insects for pollination. And how these insects get attracted? Why? Because the insects get attracted to bright colors of the petals, bright color of petals, and scent of petals. The insect get attracted to flowers because of these two things. So petals are important for pollination. Now our next basic structure is sepal. What are sepals? As we just discussed, sepals are present outside the petals. They are mostly green in color. As you can see in this diagram also, sepal is green in color, while the petal is violet. These are petals. Sepals are mostly small in size than petals. Okay. And what is the function of sepal? Sepal helps in the protection of flower in bud condition. When the flower is still in bud condition, the sepal helps to protect the flower. It encloses the flower in bud condition like this. You must have seen the flowers and their buds. They are enclosed in green colored structures, and these green colored structures are sepals. So this is the function of sepal. Now next part is stamen. Stamen is male reproductive organ, and male reproductive organ will produce male gametes, pollen grains. Their number can be varying in different type of plants. They can be 4 to hundreds of stamens in a flower. Now, most important thing is a stamen has further two parts, anther and filament. As you can see in this diagram, this is anther and this is filament. This long stalk is called filament, and filament holds a bilobed structure on its tip, which is called anther. Bilobed structure. So filament is stalk-like structure, while anther is present at the top of filament. It is bilobed in nature and it holds pollen sacs which has pollen grains. Anther has pollen sac, or we can say a bag-like structure which has pollen grains. So anther helps in holding the pollen grains. Anther is the structure where pollen grains form and get stored. These are pollen sacs. You can see here, these are 4 pollen sacs or bag-like structure in the anther. This is anther, and the pollen sacs has pollen grains in it. When the anther ripes, when the flower matures, pollen grains form and it gets ripe. Pollen grains are released from the anther or stamen for pollination. So we can say, what is the function of a stamen in a flower? It produces male gametes or pollens, and male gametes or pollens get stored in anther. They are present in anther. Next, as you can see in this diagram, this is the transverse section of anther. These are pollen sacs in pink one, and pollen sacs has pollen grains in it. Now next is carpel. What is carpel? Carpel is female reproductive organ of a flower. So what will it produce? It will produce female gamete, and female gamete is egg cell. Their number can be 1 to many in a flower. Now each carpel is divided into 3 basic parts: stigma, style, and ovary. This is stigma, the topmost portion of the carpel. This is style, the tube-like structure of a carpel. And third is ovary. This is basal and swollen portion of the carpel. So the stigma is the topmost portion, style is the second tube-like structure, and ovary is the basal and swollen part of the carpel. So stigma helps in attracting or attaching pollen grains because it has a sticky surface. The sticky surface of the stigma helps in attaching pollen grains to it. While the style, the tube-like structure, helps or give passage to the pollen grains to pass through it and to reach the ovules. Ovules has egg cells in it. So we can say, what is the function of the carpel? Carpel is responsible for holding female gametes or egg cell. Responsible for holding female gametes. So this is the typical structure of a carpel. Carpel has 3 basic structures: stigma, style, and ovary. Stigma and style are basically projected on the top of ovary to attract or to attach the pollen grains to it for the process of reproduction. Now, after the fertilization, when the sexual reproduction occurs, the carpel's ovary get transformed into fruit, while the ovule forms the seed. It is the most important point. After fertilization, the ovary transforms into fruit that we eat, and the ovule forms the seed. Ovary forms the fruit, Suppose it get transformed into an apple fruit, and the ovule get transformed into seed. So these are the 4 basic structures of a typical flower. First one is sepal, the outermost one. Next to sepal is petals, then is stamen and carpel. If a flower has both these male and female reproductive organs, that kind of flower is called bisexual flower, because it has both the sexes, male and female. So it is called bisexual flower or hermaphrodite. So it's all about the structure of a flower. Now, what holds all the 4 basic structures of a flower? That is, what holds the sepal, petal, stamen and carpel all together in a flower? It is called receptacle. It is the receptacle which holds all the structures of a flower in a single form. And it is the part of a flower stalk. You can see in this diagram, this is receptacle. It is slightly swollen and it's a part of the flower stalk. It is not a part of a flower. It is the part of flower stalk. It holds or attaches all the flower structures as a single unit. It is slightly swollen, and after fertilization, it forms part of a fruit. So it's all about the structure of a flower and its basic parts. In the next lecture, we will discuss what is pollination, what are the modes of pollination and fertilization in plants. That's all for this lecture. Thank you. Keep learning, keep practicing.